I'm 13. My mom and I are walking down a hallway in the wing of a San Francisco art museum and past an auditorium. I can hear a voice on the other side of the door, loud, accented, lilting and rolling and sure of itself. Books are stacked high on a table outside the door. I've never been to a reading, don't know what this is, don't know whether we're allowed inside, but before I can fret about it, my mom smiles at me conspiratorially and walks inside. I follow. The auditorium is chilly and full. The people are quiet, staring at the woman. There's a feeling of seriousness in here that I immediately love, a sensation I'm constantly rooting around for as a young person. I don't much care for humor or lightness. I want to know the truth about things, the real answers. I want to be taken seriously. Nobody takes a child seriously. On stage is Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni, I learn. She's reading out loud from a book of her poems, Leaving Yuba City. The audience wants to know her story, the woman she is and was and is becoming. The sounds that come from her are clouds moving across the horizon, and thunder, and cinnamon and hot chocolate, and rusted metal, and the unfurling of a new lime green fern. What I mean is, my stomach is flipping upside down, like some sleeping snake in my belly has finally been charmed awake. What I'm saying is, I felt suddenly a light. My mom sees something, some alien sheen on my eyeballs, some hair standing straight up from my arms, and buys me 2 of Divakaruni's books when the reading is over, a novel and a collection of poetry. The novel is a hardback. It costs almost $30. $30 for a book, and $15 for the poetry. I mean, come on. This kind of reckless spending is unheard of. I'm only allowed 3 school lunches a month because they're too expensive at $2.50 per meal. These 2 books become diamonds once they reach my hands, worth that much, and they are mine. They are serious. They are books of spells. Most of my childhood and adolescence, I feel isolated, unwanted, but in this moment, I do not. I feel like my mom has seen the snake of me and is buying it expensive food to keep it alive. I stroke these books, spinning them over and over in my hands, begin reading. I read the novel, read the poems, again and again. I read Cutting the Sun and feel myself unfolding. What I love about this poem is that it makes me feel both afraid and defiant. The scale of this poem is thrilling. The sun is at once gigantic hot and able to be cut open with only a pair of scissors. The poem operates with a kind of dream logic where the speaker suddenly has scissors in her hands. Where did she just get them? The same logic that startled me awake last night, now, 20 years after I first encountered Divakaruni, shouting to my husband that birds were pecking away my hands. But in this dream, not dream poem, the speaker takes scissors and cuts right into the sun that is trying to take her name. And what is inside the sun? Flowers, flowers, flowers. Past the fear, there is beauty. Though the speaker here is not afraid. It's just my fear, perhaps. She holds in her hand something powerful enough to cut through whatever arrives. I've never seen the painting to which the poem alludes, Francesco Clemente's Indian miniature number 16, and in truth did not know what it meant for the first years I had the book. But I like that one piece of art helped create another, this poem which made a new, though connected, idea in a faraway brain. And so Francesco Clemente has infected me too through the game of art telephone. Cutting the Sun is a nature poem, sort of. It is a poem that makes a new kind of sense to me here in South Carolina, where I've just moved, where so much nature feels adversarial. The natural world is beautiful in the poem, and here in South Carolina too, with rays of sun, quote, striated, rasp red and muscled as the tongues of iguanas, unquote. But those same rays are also, quote, trying to lick away my name. My husband and I just went on a camping trip over spring break into a swampy forest on the South Carolina coast, and there we encountered packs of wild boars, gators, snakes, swarms of mosquitoes and chiggers, biting flies, wasps, poison ivy, ticks sucking merrily in our crevices, and though the weather was mild, in the summer, the sun and heat and humidity can kill a person. We were reminded of that often, walking on a raised path through the swamp that was dug by enslaved people who were made to work rice fields there. We were reminded of that as we swatted and doused ourselves in bug spray and hid in the car and did all kinds of things to protect our bodies, things that people who stood in the same place before us were not able to do. How easy it would be to have one's body badly damaged here. How quickly the sun could devour you. How necessary it would be to have those big blue scissors ready to cut straight to the heart of whatever threatened until the sun's, quote, rays fall around you, curling a bit like dried carrot peel. The power of that, of turning the sun into nothing but dried carrot peel. The beautiful impossibility of it. Sometimes we find the words that save us. Sometimes the words find us. I stumbled upon Diva Karuni by accident, the first writer I laid eyes on, and I latched onto her words with the devotion of a first love. I still feel it. Enchantment. I celebrate her work, these beautiful and accessible poems which still enfold within them a complication, a contradiction, a feeling bigger than the words literalize. These poems which still move me. I celebrate this poem that burrows deeply into a 13-year-old, that changes over time as that girl grows, that opens the door to other poems, narrative and figurative, lineated and blocked, contemporary and old. I celebrate getting the right poem into the right hands by whatever accidental snake storm alien eye glow makes that happen. I celebrate the way so many years later, in a swamp across the country from where I was raised, I experience her words again in nature's sublime danger, in the terrible history that is part of many of the physical places we visit in this country, in nature poetry that is also necessarily about its humans and must make us take responsibility for our human history, in the sun, of which I am afraid, of which I am not afraid. I celebrate poetry. Here's to poetry, and I celebrate my mom for spending finite and precious money on books, for deciding we too could belong in for an author's reading. I celebrate the poems that let us take ourselves seriously enough to then learn not to take ourselves so seriously. I celebrate the very serious girl becoming woman I was at 13 who finally read that she could use whatever logic she wanted to hold scissors against that which wanted to strip her of who she was becoming.
You're listening to Books on the Bed, where I travel through the country asking our hosts, if I came to your town and stayed at your house, what books would you put on my bed? Each host will share 6 books for me to carry with me on the journey of my life. And I'm here to share those books with you. As we go, we're building a digital library with every book put on every bed across the country. And who knows, maybe someday, the world. We're trying to share as many diverse stories as possible to part a curtain between us and bring us closer to each other. We hope these books and conversations make a meaningful difference in your life. Thank you for listening and being with us on this journey. Heck yeah.
Thanks.
Woo.
Thanks for finding that.
Pardon my atheism, but Jesus Christ. I read your books, which are amazing, but I never just stop there because writers always are writing.
Yeah.
And you never know where you're going to find the thing that it's just like, this means everything, And that's how this felt reading it. So I'm glad that I found it and that you read it because it felt like just such a formative experience for who you'd become.
Yeah.
All the way to now. It's special.
It really was. And I mean, actually, it's so interesting. One of my, we were talking before about like the 6 books we pick and then the alternate stack and then the alternate stack. And in my alternate stack is The Mistress of Spices by Chitra Diva Karuni.
I didn't know if she was going to be included, but.
Yeah, I mean, and I haven't reread that book in over 20 years, but like it still holds that magic to me. And there's something about, I think sometimes people ask, like I remember this question, maybe like in college, it was like, write your literary biography, your life and reading. And I think for people who aren't maybe obsessed with reading and writing in the same way, that doesn't hold, a ton of value. But like, yeah. I feel like I can trace every important thing that I've thought or become in relationship to books and writing. And probably the same is true for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, any kind of art, it's just like, those experiences of reading a book or listening to an album, watching a movie, they don't go away. I mean, the ones that really just, I remember Eliza Eden's, the songwriter I interviewed on my first podcast, said it best, that when she reads Mary Oliver, it feels like she's writing into her body. I love that. And that kind of sums up anything that I've read.
Oh, I love that.
So the good stuff is so deep.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's hard sometimes for me. And that's why I love doing this podcast, because to be honest, and working at a bookstore, because if I had to just exist in normal life again, like working at a university or just like being around people who don't care about art, especially books, I just sound like an insane person. Because almost every question asked, like, oh man, how'd you end up in Western North Carolina in a town of 4,000? Well,
Yeah.
let me talk about 10 books that helped me find the courage to do that.
That's right.
It's like, so that's why I find this really fun. Is because, talking with Joey Grantham, now working at City Lights, it kind of gave me a validation in some way. Not that I didn't know this, but he's like, oh yeah, that's such a good concept. Cause like people will reveal so much about themselves when they pull out a book. I'm like, yeah, I know. I
mean, it's like that.
You never know.
Totally. Like that moment for me too. I mean, that dive, we only get into it a little bit in that little essay, which was something that FSG was celebrating Poetry Month. And they just had some writers, some FSG authors write these like little, just sort of celebrations of poetry. I'm pretty sure it was just for them.
Yeah.
But there's actually so much in there that's like, let me tell you about class. Let me tell you about the economics of what life was like for me. And let me tell you about, this strenuous relationship with my mom. And so you get to like dive into these little pieces that the big story, the big story of books, like just it's all of those stories.
And you could take any paragraph really and then go on its own conversation about your life there.
Right.
Because you bring in so much. And even just the idea of like becoming who you are, sometimes you need a model that's outside of where you live.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us found that in books. Like
totally.
just whoever we're going to become, it can't, not with what we have given.
That's right.
Like with where we live. And you particularly being in Woodacre, California, like, I mean,
it's a wild place.
That is, they said suburban online. I'm like, I think that's a generous interpretation of where that is. Because like, I remember being up there, as I told you, I hiked the Dipsy Trail with a friend. But like some of those towns out there.
Oh, where I lived was straight up rural.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, it was cow tipping jokes, forever. Yeah.
It's just funny to, like when I met you, this is why I'm never surprised by where people come from. But then reading the Red Grove, it's like, all right, this makes a lot more sense given the landscape you grew up in. But part of the reason I picked this to start us off was because where we're going to go in this conversation and the meaning of books in your life, but also because of the gifts that I got you. And I wanted to start with one in particular that plays off the title of one of the poems you mentioned in there.
Cool.
But I forget which one is bigger. I think this is it. So let's open this one first. And I'll give people context as to why I got this for you. And I didn't get you any novels because I had already gotten you Woman of Light.
Yep.
And the only other novel I want this on record to say is Would-Be, coming out in March by T. Kyra Madden. Have you heard about that?
Do you know that I did her New York Times review of Long Live the Tribe of Fatherless Girls?
No, I didn't see that.
So I'm like deeply connected to her, and I am so excited for this next book of hers.
That was the only novel that I was like, man, I wish it were out so I could give it to you. But these were definitely really good too, and directly related to this article.
Let it be known that these are beautifully wrapped in botanical, lovely paper. Leaving Biddle City, poems by Marianne Chan.
So, because of leaving Yuba City, this is Marianne's version growing up in Lansing, Michigan as a Filipino-American child. And Biddle City is like the mythical name of where Lansing is now that I think has been debunked, that's what these two brothers from New York City called it when it was nothing. Like I don't know how the story exactly got created and like carried so far, but this is her experience as a child of immigrants in the suburban Midwest.
Amazing.
And it's the same like you would be connected with Marianne. Just your life has so much diversity in what you've done. Like I found your second LinkedIn that stopped at Alabama. And like all the things listed, I was like, what? You did everything.
It's been a busy life.
And so, but that means like you see things as connected, art as connected. And like this book is similarly experimental and references deep history, and just memory and coming of age in a place where you see yourself as not belonging. Anyway, I think you'll really like this one. And Sarah Band Books constantly puts out amazing stuff.
They don't go wrong. Yeah. Thank you so much. This is really exciting.
And the second one, higher likelihood you've read it.
Okay.
But because of references to your mother in here and your visit to Phone of the Wind, I just felt like this is one that you'd really connect with. So
Thank
you can go ahead and open it.
Okay, book number 1 had beautiful botanical prints, and this is lovely butterflies and dragonflies on the paper. Listeners know the sweetness of this wrap. Oh my gosh, I know of this book, and I have not read it, nor do I have it.
Sweet.
This is amazing.
Okay, because I was thinking of another book to get you. And I was in Arkansas a few days ago at Two Friends Bookstore in Bentonville, which has like an oddly rich and colorful collection of books, given the fact that Bentonville is so bland and just like, it's just Walmart, so everything looks like Walmart's there. And then you go in this bookshop and it's got like some pretty weird and wild books in there. And so I saw this and I had read it before, but it just hit me. I was like, this is Victoria imagining. She couldn't imagine life without her mother, similar to you. Mm-hmm. So she does these obituary poems. Mm-hmm. Not so much as like celebrating the person that's dead, but talking about the deep loss, focusing on what you lose. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a big difference, and one that you've discussed and wrote about a lot. Mm-hmm. And so I just feel like there will be recognition in her grieving and healing process. Looking at these. And it's just such a unique book to do obituary poems.
Oh, I'm so excited about this. I mean, even just your description there, I get really tired. I've always gotten really tired of how uncomfortable it is to talk about death and grief for most people. And so they want to talk about like, what have they given you? What do you carry? And sometimes you want to be like, come on, damn it. Let me talk about what's gone and what's lost. And there just like is not much space for that. So I'm really glad for this.
Yeah. I mean, I knew this would be a good haven for you to read and not feel exactly what you're talking about. And I mean, this is why hardly anybody talks about death with each other or other people, is because they mostly can't trust that they can actually say what they feel or what's on their mind when they're with another person. Because, right, like eulogies are fine, I guess. Yeah. Like I watch so many shows that and movies that have to do with death, and just the awkward moment where you're having to reckon with like, man, this was a complicated relationship, and I have to get in front of all these people and talk about them. And I don't really want to just like celebrate, because that's not exactly, especially for people that are relieved that their parents are dead. Yeah.
Or where it just feels really mixed. But you can't get up there and be like, I'm kind of glad they died and kind of not.
You're like, wow, I can kind of move on now. Yeah. But truly, that's how so many people, like I remember my ex, her father relapsed after 20 years sober. And, like when we weren't together when he died, but like I knew that was going to be just such a like weird wave of emotions, because he really ruined a lot when he relapsed and was a dead weight, or like, I don't know, people like Townes Van Zandt are just a resource suck on everybody around them, despite the fact that they make this beautiful music. So it's like death is just a lot of things.
It's a lot of things.
Because people are many things. Yeah. And anyway, this book, I think you'll feel comfort reading it like someone else understands.
Thank you so
what it's
much.
Like to lose someone and not to know how to move on.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So anyway, Victoria Chang Obit, you're going to love it. And the last one I got for your daughter.
Hooray!
So I was with Andrea Rogers in Arkansas, and this book won the Caldecott Medal. Ooh. And is the story of a young Cherokee boy named Chooch.
Yay. Chooch helped.
And it's a beautiful book. It's beautifully illustrated. And just when I was with her and talking a lot about writing a children's book and being a mother and all, I was like, okay, I think this would be good to give you for reading with your daughter.
Thank you so much. I love this. This is great. So I'm Métis, which is a Canadian Indigenous group. And there's like one Métis children's book, but it's a little bit too old for my daughter right now. And so I've like tried to read it to her a little bit and we haven't really been able to get there. But this feels like not only is this like really, really beautiful, but it will be sort of like an introduction into like thinking about Indigenous people.
No doubt.
Yeah,
well, and Toni Jensen.
Really cool. Yeah,
is
Toni.
Métis as well. So
I know that was the,
she grew up in rural Iowa. Yeah. Actually, your backgrounds are strangely more connected than I realize.
That's when we did this reading together, we were like, I was like, I had never met another Métis person who wasn't part of my family. It blew my mind. And I don't present, I don't physically look Métis. I don't present as very Métis. Yeah. And so it's always like surprising. And, you know, the race is strange and complicated.
Yeah.
But yeah, she,
wow. Yeah. I can't believe I didn't put this together.
She is beloved. I should reach out to her again.
Yeah. No, this is great. But I think, you'll love it. And Andrea is just one of those people, pure soul. I could have given you books for every stage of your child's life.
Amazing.
That Andrea has, because she writes short stories for middle age. She wrote a YA novel called The Art Thieves, which is also really important for adults too. So at any rate, I wanted to celebrate her, but also
thank you.
I'm glad that connects with hopefully opening up avenues of dialogue and connection with your daughter. So
thanks. Thank you. It's really generous.
But really, I mean, I think I'm so glad I met you. It's one of those happy accidents in life that you just happen to be at the same Lit Fest.
Yeah.
And you realize this is someone, gosh, I really want to know them and connect with them and read their work. And your books and really just your presence has been a really huge gift. I mean, the people that were at your event still talk about you.
Oh, that's so sweet.
So you just have that kind of impact. And I hope you keep writing for forever. And you know that you've got a bookseller that will push your books to as many people as possible.
Thanks, Matt.
So anyway, with that, going back to this essay, before we get to the books on the bed, there was a couple of things that stuck out to me. But it was this idea that you as a child, like books were helping you step into a new space where you felt like you belonged. Mm-hmm. And that was coming from not only feeling isolated as a child, but also like, think you have to be able to afford things, right? Mm-hmm. Kids feel this way all the time when they don't have, like my dad didn't go to a movie theater until he was 18.
Wow. Yeah.
So people take for granted to experience art. Mm-hmm. You need to be able to pay for it or have someone give it to you. And then also like your mother, you talked about this with the Red Grove, but how you became a mother and realized like, wait, there was an epiphany here. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those moments of trying that ended up having a very, very large impact. So I just would like to go a little bit more in depth about why this moment you felt like was worth celebrating and writing about all these years later and how it changed the trajectory and even maybe like led you to be a writer yourself. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things about this moment that I remember so well is this feeling of, it is the first time I remember feeling surrounded by people who were taking art seriously and who were sort of like focused with this singular kind of vision on language and on storytelling. And the auditorium, I mean, you know, it was like a little bit also of like goddess celebrity worship. You know, the auditorium was packed. Chitra is a very beautiful woman and she's up on stage and she had this commanding presence and I was, you know, enthralled by her. But I think like more than that, it was like my mom was not, so I'm a first generation college student. My mom was a painter, but was not academic or scholarly, wasn't into school. And I always was. And she, I think, struggled with that with me, honestly. I think she struggled with trying to figure out how to help me or she kind of didn't understand that about me. And so this felt like, this is the first moment that I can remember. And honestly, maybe one of the only moments where I could like see her sort of being like, this isn't a thing that I would do. But like, I think this is my kid's vibe. I think this is, you know, I can like see something happening in her here. And so, it was like, I mean, it was like, you know, literally opening the door into this amphitheater, but really metaphorically just opening the door into this crowd of people who were obsessively listening, obsessively thinking about storytelling, then this huge line for the object of the books, like all of these people in line to buy the books and then to get it signed, like even just this kind of moment of transformation. I had been to the library a lot before, but I don't even know if I'd been into a bookstore, honestly. Like I don't have a single memory of like my parents buying me a new book. I got lots of library books, but I don't think that had happened. And so it was like, I actually never thought about that until right now. Maybe we did, but I actually, why have I never even thought about that? Yeah. I don't have any memories of it. I don't know. So it was also like the object of the book having monetary value, being something that is worth spending money on. And that has value, that the stories inside it have value. It was profound. And it was really like there were a few things that happened when I was young that feel like kind of the greatest gifts. This was like, a really big moment for me. And another thing happened when I was in high school, which was really in retrospect, like an unbelievable gift. And that is, I got really into writing early. I was really into poetry in high school, writing some
Weren't you a poetry? This was one of the things. Weren't you a poetry coach? A teacher and soccer coach?
Yes, poetry. I worked at an after-school program doing poetry and soccer. Yes.
So I was like, I feel comfortable getting you poetry.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I actually went into an MFA program in poetry. I started out as a poet, and then I shifted over to prose. Yeah.
Anyway, in high school.
So in high school, there was an English teacher at my high school. I went to a private, really great high school on a full scholarship. So I was there as the full scholarship kid, being an angsty poet, playing a lot of sports. And I had this English teacher who was like, hey, I have heard that there are these summer conferences for writers. And I know someone who works at this one in Tahoe. At the time, it was called the Squaw Valley Community of Writers. Now it's called the Community of Writers. And she was like, I think you should just apply. And I wasn't even yet 16. I was 15. Wow. But she was like, I know you'll have to apply for a full scholarship. I don't know what the chances are that they'd let a high school kid in, but I did it. I applied. And these miracle workers let me in. And I turned 16 before it started, so I drove myself there.
Oh, sweet.
And I spent a week working with, this is going to blow your mind, working with Robert Hass, Galway Cannell, Sharon Olds, Lucille Clifton, and Dorianne Locks.
Fuck.
Crazy. Crazy. That was the lineup of the faculty who were there.
Yo, shout out teachers, though.
Oh, my God.
Are you kidding me? The fact that suggestion got you there.
Yes.
Also, I just need to say, Lucille Clifton is, matriarch of this project. She has come up in so many different states with so many different people.
Yes, Lucille.
Glenn Taylor has a tattoo of a Lucille quote. His lampshades are book covers of Lucille. Ramika Bingham-Risher, we took a selfie accidentally. Lucille's head was in the back from a magazine cover. So the fact that I'm so jealous of anyone that got to meet her, and the fact that you just did this kind of on a whim.
It was,
all of them, not just Lucille, but oh my God, that's so cool.
It was spectacular. And, I didn't even know at the time. Even know at the time. But what it felt like was kind of in a similar way that coming to this Diva Karuni event sort of opened this door to me about the literary world. Coming to this conference, I felt like not only these are people who I actually can see taking this so seriously that they're making a life of it. And they are encouraging me to get better and be a writer. But I think most crucially, they took me seriously as a writer right then. I
was going to say, it's like the thing you were looking for.
It was exactly what I was looking for.
And your mother opened that door.
Yeah.
With just being like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Right? This is something that shows I'm interested in what you want.
Totally.
And $30 turns into a lot more.
Yeah.
And this is why when people say oh, don't you think selling a book is same as selling a phone? I'm like, no.
Oh, no.
No, because $900 of an iPhone traps you. It's a trap. All of it is a trap. I'm not saying there aren't some good things. I've met authors on Instagram.
Sure.
But you can always do it a different way.
Yeah.
What you get from books, anywhere from $1 to $50, incalculable, the return on that investment.
I agree completely.
And so here you are getting taken seriously by people who don't even know you. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not as if they had some like selfish reason to gas you up and like, no, it's just, you're there.
Yeah.
We want you here. We're going to take you seriously and help you write. That's incredible.
It was incredible. And let me be the first to say, it wasn't because my poems at 16 were tremendous. Like that, that wasn't what was going on. But I think that they could see my seriousness.
Yeah.
They could see how badly I loved it, how much it was saving my life. And
I think for kids now, it's still hard to be someone who cares.
Yeah.
I mean, my whole life was just like, I didn't want to downplay what I cared about, what I loved. It didn't matter and luckily I had my brother who was so obsessed with like things that were outside of the mainstream, skateboarding, straight edge, hardcore punk music, just like nothing mattered to him other than that. So people could make fun of him. And it took me a lot longer to get there. But then it's just like, just to have that moment where you can you're like in this haven of seriousness as a writer.
Yeah.
And that's what you really wanted, But I think it also shows like, you have to try. Yeah. You just have to try. You don't have to be, hardly anyone is great at something the minute they do it.
Maybe no one. I think we could,
True.
But also like, I want to just also doubly shout out, you said this already, but like, that like it was the fact of my English teacher and the fact of my mom and probably so many other people I'm not thinking about just being like, hey, I just see you for a second. I'm just seeing you for a second here. And here's this thing that comes to mind that I think this is going to be a door that you want to walk through.
Yeah. It's just the simplest suggestions or leading you into this room. And what's great. So like, this is reminding me of one of my favorite books is Willa Cather's Song of the Lark, because that moment where she's now in Chicago from Moonstone, Colorado, which is, based on the rural town that Willa Cather grew up in Nebraska, which would not be all that different from how you grew up. These isolating factors. She goes to Chicago, this character. She wants to be a singer, performer. She looks up at this painting in the Art Institute that she'd been avoiding since she moved there because she was poor and sick and tired, lived in this boarding house. She looks up and it was this, girl in the field looking up and waking up to the possibilities of her life. Wow. And you walking into this room for a reading, you going to this writing conference, and then like it's crazy to think now that I even have more full of a full picture. You did, what was that? 2006, the Midtown International Theater Festival in New York. A Mouthful of Water.
Yeah,
I did. Was it you were doing a one-woman show?
Yeah. I performed at a bunch of fringe festivals in New York, and
I even found the person, Jason David Scott.
Yeah,
has that on his resume.
Really?
That he directed this with you? Yeah. So it's
amazing.
And then there was another one, I think, at Center Stage Theater, Legs.
Yeah, that was my first when I was in college, my senior thesis. I wrote and performed a one-woman show.
Like you just kept building to where now, like you're publicly displaying this artistic ability. So it just kind of all led to you becoming who you were.
Yeah.
Maybe inside, and now you can do it in all these different ways. And I just find that beautiful.
I feel like it's been a really, it feels sort of like a curvy road. Like I have packed a lot in, I guess, but I was really into I've always been writing. That's always been consistent, but I was really into performance for a long time. I was really into international development for a long time. So worked in a lot of like nonprofits and also though, when I kind of can get a bird's eye view, I think the thing has always been thinking about like our performed selves, like who we are in different versions of our life and, different interactions, different conversations and stuff, this like idea of performance. And then this idea of writing your story. And I mean, I think one of the pieces of like coming from feeling really isolated, feeling like I didn't fit in, didn't have a place. I had a really hard time with my family for a lot of reasons. And I think one of the things that can give you is this sense of wanting to be around other people who feel like that. And so, even though I didn't end up sort of pursuing a long-term career in like international development or something, like a piece of my life has always sort of had my arm in that direction. So I taught in prisons for many, many years.
Oh, yeah, in
worked
Alabama.
in Alabama and in Utah.
Were you at Tutwiler?
Yes, I was at Tutwiler.
You ever seen that documentary by Elaine McMillan Sheldon about the pregnant women at Tutwiler?
No, but I had them in my class.
I will send it to you.
Yeah, wow.
Elaine's incredible.
Wow.
And she did that with the Marshall Project.
Yeah.
So
oh, man.
I thought that connection was interesting because they're the only two people that I've ever known that worked there.
The big story broke the year after I was there, and it had been going on for years. And it was horrifying. I mean, the women talked about it, and just it hadn't been believed before. Yeah.
I know it's horrifying. But yeah, you worked in the prisons. You also were part of starting Writers in the Schools in Utah.
Yeah, I started it. Yeah. There wasn't one there, which was kind of bonkers. And I was in the PhD program there and was feeling very much like not that wasn't my world. That was feeling kind of strange. Really? Yeah. And so
just because of the being in academia,
being kind of, it felt like I was getting so far specialized that my feet were no longer in a recognizable place on the earth. And I was trying to write. That's when I was writing The Electric Woman, which is my first book, my memoir. And the program, I love Utah, love the program, love a lot of the things about it. But the program was very experimental. And so what I was turning in was not being well received. And then when I started to take kind of more of a commercial publishing path, I got an agent, and it was... not well received. Tension. So, yeah.
Well, and that can be, then you're like, gosh, I'm stuck in this place that doesn't really align with what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting path to go to the schools then, which makes sense, though. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think, like, Naomi Shihab Nye, it was one of the best visits I've ever had. And part of the reason I love her spirit is you can tell she spent a lot of time around children. Like being a poet who travels into the schools. She did that for Texas for years, still does. Yeah. She's done things internationally with kids. She had some incredible anecdotes about like moments going into a school. Like one time she went into this school and I think it was in Japan, and they have silent reading at the beginning of every day. And she didn't have a book, and the kids were like, "Where's your book?" like that she had to do it too. Yeah. So then they like let her and got her a book, and then she sat there reading. So it's like, but I love that idea of it grounds you.
Yeah.
When you're in this place where, I'm not in academia, so I can say it. Like, you just lose touch with what it means to be human when you're completely focused on just even like a few stories of a building, and like your own research and intellectual reputation and all that. I mean, I'm assuming it can drive you nuts.
I think so.
So I love that you took that though and said, okay, well, let's try this.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things, so like I was doing it on my own, going and teaching creative writing in some schools. And then I built a class at the university where I brought a bunch of undergraduates into the schools to teach writing.
Sweet.
And the thing that felt so cool was that, I don't know if you've experienced this, but like when you talk to a general population, there are so many people who are like, reading, writing, like I could never do that. Like I had this teacher in second grade who told me what a bad writer I was or whatever. Like there are so many people who just develop poor relationships with reading and writing. It's not their fault. It's like whatever else has happened. And I think that it actually has huge social consequences, because then I think if people don't feel like they have the sort of like intellect and literary, the ability to critically analyze something, read something, decide if something is true or not true. Like the permeations of this are enormous. They're enormous right now, culturally, like politically. And so I feel like, not to say that like, teaching writing in the schools is the answer to that, but it felt like if I could be a tiny part of something where we are changing the relationship of young people to what writing means. So it's like it was the only time that these kids got to play with writing, and writing wasn't like something that they were learning for a test. And so it was like, okay, if I can have the privilege of having part of my life be about inserting the play and the joy of writing and reading into these kids' lives, like how can there not be positive consequences down the line?
And what comes from that play, taking the pressure off, is then maybe a willingness to engage deeper with things that might have seemed more challenging. You know, I think about me going to Michigan. I was completely ill-prepared to be a college student. I mean, I got a D- on my first sociology paper. Ooh. And, you know, then you start having thoughts that have never crept in before, like, am I not smart enough to be here? Like, is there something wrong with me? You know, like, oh, I got all these good grades in high school, but clearly that didn't matter. But what was interesting is, as much as all of those bad grades and negative feelings were stacking up, there was always a teacher to help me reroute that. So in that class, I had a graduate student instructor meet with me every Wednesday at 2 p.m. at Comic Coffee in downtown Ann Arbor till I learned how to write. Wow. I mean, that's a grad student who could do anything else, but because she knew I really wanted to get better, and not to be impressive, but because, like, I felt so bad about myself. I felt like a fraud. You know, and then the more of those experiences happened, same thing in history. I was like, I don't understand any of this. I'm dumb. I can't participate. Just having a graduate student say, look, most of these people who are participating are not saying anything earth-shattering. They might have even read it one paragraph and just planned. Because that's how, like, you know, a lot of the frat boys did it, I realized. Like, I started learning the game. Is they did just enough to do like one or two things in class that made it seem, but they lacked all context. So they weren't even trying, you know? And so all of these moments made me feel like, wait, okay. Yeah, I can do this. But also then it became a matter of, like, it's just a part of learning.
Yeah.
It's doing poorly and then getting better at it.
That's right.
And having some fun too. Yeah. You know, like, so yeah, that's really cool that you decided to do that. Because some people who get in those environments, they're like, they go further into themselves.
I mean, there was some of that too.
No doubt. But yeah, and then is that program still going on? Do you know?
It is. It still exists, yeah. And it's tied into the university. It's now funded through the university, and there's grad students running it. And yeah.
Your high school English teacher would be proud.
Oh, I mean, Karen Whitaker, shout out.
It's just, So it's interesting always when you have these people, like, you know, I meet so many authors. And they might have what seem like disparate experiences, cross country, doing drama and plays, writing poetry, right? And then writing a memoir, and then a debut novel, and have, you know, everything in between. But it's like it all connects to these seminal experiences, you know, where you're just like figuring out who you are. But I am curious, now that you look back and you see where you are today, did you see those choices of, like, doing all these different things as, like, purposeful to figure out, like, oh, is this something I want to do? Or was it kind of like, how would you describe, because I mean, truly your resume is all over the place at a first glance, but like, was it something where you just were one of those kids that wanted to try and then just not do it if you didn't feel it? Did you feel pressure to do a lot coming for where, you know, like, as a kid, like, I have to like achieve all these things and to get to college? Like, I'm curious where that came from, your desire to do all these different things. Yeah.
I mean, it kind of feels like the answer is all of those things. Like, I certainly always had the strong idea that I had a duty to excel. That is certainly part of it. It also is true that I have never been able to not have a job, which is just true of, you know, when you come from a family that isn't supporting you financially, you know, after you're out of the house or whatever, like, there's never a time where I could just, like, have a chill internship and see, you know, like, that wasn't my road. You know, lucky for folks that it is. But so in my mind, like, I can actually just kind of trace my two roads back really far. And really, even though it's been all over the place, almost everything I've done has been in one of these two roads. And one of them really is writing and the arts. And the other is kind of global studies, international development. And so I had a lot of jobs that kind of jumped between one or the other. And I was always looking for jobs that were at some sort of intersection of the two. Like, for a while, when I was living in New York, I worked at Sesame Street, at Sesame Workshop, which was awesome.
That's unreal.
It was super, super fun. It was great. And they are this amazing nonprofit that does incredible international and domestic work. And you know, I was just like an executive assistant. I, you know, wasn't like doing any creative work on there, but that felt like, I was like, oh, I could see that this is a place where kind of creative work and that sort of international kind of aid work I'm interested in sort of intersects. And ultimately, that kind of intersection path stopped feeling like exactly right. But most of what I've done has kind of been in one of those areas or the other. And
yeah, it looked like you were putting yourself in these different environments that also put you around like-minded people, you know, and hopefully some role models. I saw you were a buyer at Moe's Bookshop too.
I was, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I worked at Moe's,
Yo,
yeah.
shouts out, Berkeley, California.
Berkeley.
How did you get that job?
I mean, I wasn't really a buyer there, but I just worked there. But after New York, I moved back to the Bay Area and was just scrambling, putting jobs together. And so I worked part-time. Actually, I can't remember if these overlapped or if they were one after the other, but I worked for an organization called Bay Area Scores, which is wildly this after-school program for Title I schools that alternates day by day soccer and poetry. And I grew up playing soccer and was like, how does this exist?
This is perfect.
This is amazing.
Oh my gosh.
That was
the young
really
poet
fun.
Soccer player heart is like,
yes, explosively fun, super fun. And then I worked at Moe's. I mean, I also was nannying at that time, and I was just doing some waitressing. I was like scraping together all kinds of jobs. But yeah, I worked at Moe's for about a year. It was fabulous. I just got to like reshelve books, and I worked in a lot of it was like where I learned about the first things about publishing, like how books come out on Tuesdays and how, when you unbox and how you think about where they're going. And it was really helpful. And that place is an institution, and so many of the booksellers there had been there for like from the 60s. It's like this really remarkable group of people who live there. So, I mean, that was like another step, I think, in being like, oh, these are my people. And it was actually when I was there and I met a couple poets who were like, hey, did you know about MFA programs? And I was like, no, what is that? And they're like, did you know you could go write poetry and they'll pay you to be there? And I was like, oh my God, what? And that is when I applied to MFA programs. And like, that's how that next turn happened. So yeah, I mean, it's always these little guardian angels on your path that are just like, hey, here's this store. Have you heard about this store? And oh, thank goodness for them.
I say it almost every episode, but James McBride, his whole philosophy, there's one part in his latest novel where he says, everything got everything to do with everything.
Yes.
And I really believe that now, having met so many people who can explain their lives in this way where, okay, nothing might have been even accidental, but if you're really listening and paying attention to your own life, it's like, oh, this actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And is that because that was what, 2007? So
yeah, 7 to 9.
Not long after went to Alabama, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was working there. I think I moved back from New York in 2007. So between 2007 and 9 is when I was in the Bay Area doing that stuff. And then I started at Alabama in 2009. Yep. Right to there. Yeah.
And you've gotten your schooling in some interesting places.
Yeah.
I mean, Salt Lake City, Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
And then you lived in South Carolina, right?
Yeah.
You now live in Asheville. I mean, you've
been around.
Which I love as a person who's done that.
Yeah.
I feel comfortable with folks who understand what it's like to just keep moving.
Yeah.
That's not even counting joining the circus, Sure. Although I have to say something that stood out about your New York Midtown International Theater Festival. Do you want to know what one of the other plays was?
What?
Jews Don't Join the Circus.
What?
I found that accidentally, and I was like, wait, no way.
Wow.
I mean, this was like, 7 years before?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But not that there's like a direct link, but still, like, what are the odds?
That's really funny, yeah.
That someone who joins the circus is...
Matt, I don't think I've ever had someone do a deep enough dive to find things like the Midtown International Theater. Like, this is fun. This is wild.
You're Tessa Fontaine. I have to do it. Look, one of my biggest inspirations, despite the fact that I don't have a gimmick like he does, because I can't, I just have to be me. But Nardwuar, his interviews, when I got the very few times I've ever spent a lot of time on YouTube. Have been for like the music video era, when music was cool, and they actually took that seriously. But then Nardwuar, like, he would go interview these rappers, and to the point that sometimes he would make them so uncomfortable, especially the ones that were really rich and weren't used to this level of like digging it. Like Jay-Z it was a horrible experience. I think Big Sean was horrible. But then other people are just like, he'll find a record that someone had, in their room in the record collection that it freaks people out how they found that. Or this chicken spot that was bulldozed 25 years ago in Compton. And then he'll whip out a picture of it or something, and it's cool to see those reactions. And to me, it's not about, I loved that Nardwuar did that partially to get a rise, but also that was a level of attention to other people that I found astounding and rare in
Super
interviewers.
rare, yeah.
Because I think anyone can, I love your books. That's why I'm here. I've told you that. I share them with as many people as I can. Someone came in the other day, bought The Electric Woman, because they were just gripping it for 5 minutes. And I was like, they're leaving with that book, because now that and knowing you a little bit, I can tell them about who you are. So that's great. It's great. But how we get to this is far more fascinating to me.
I agree with you.
So the fact that you did all of this coming where you came from and not even having been to a bookstore until, at least that you remember. Right? It's remarkable that you've written these books, that you've done all this. So I just think it's cool to celebrate that. Thanks. And I hope that when people listen to this, that they find, I think about your daughter. Everybody needs different paths to see, themselves going down. And to have someone in their own house that did all these different things and tried, not everybody has that. So I just think it's cool how you've reinvented yourself a lot and dealt with a ton of grief and worked your way through that. And so to me, that's why I spend a lot of time, is because if I'm going to come here, I need to be ready for it, and I want to know who you are. And all of this is part of that. So,
well, I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
You're a real asset to the literary world. It's great.
Best job of my life. Seriously. I don't even know what I would do without it. So anyway, well, speaking of, I think this is a good chance to transition. We've talked a lot about where you come from and mentioned that these books in general have played a huge role. And so, even if you didn't go to bookstores when you're young, because I didn't either. It wasn't until college that I read a lot, because they were boring. There was so much pressure in high school.
Yeah, right.
And I didn't like the books. I'm not going to lie, I didn't like The Great Gatsby in high school.
Sure.
I was like, this is insufferable. Almost everything we read, because we didn't, growing up in Dayton, Ohio, we did not have a diverse curriculum at a Catholic school. And so it wasn't until I got the good stuff at Michigan that I was like, this is beyond.
The Great Gatsby is a great book, but not for when you're a first-time early reader. It's a great book to read, way down the line when you have some context,
and thinking, every book I read at that age, 15, 16, was in preparation for a test.
Yeah,
because I felt so much pressure to get a 4.0 so that I could get into Michigan and Stanford and Northwestern, that everything was about that, not about the thing itself.
Totally.
So taking an AP history class was purely an aim at getting into good schools, not to learn history.
Yeah.
And so the pressure affiliated with that, in the mind, it's kind of shuts you down.
Totally.
But at any rate, so let's take a look at the stack of books that you would give someone if they stayed here, so that they could have a better reading life.
Okay. So this is, this was a high stress situation, but I'm just going to do my best. So all of the books I have in this stack, I feel completely obsessed with.
Okay.
For really different reasons. But I feel like since since you gifted me poetry, I kind of want to start.
I was like, we have
poetry.
to do this now, knowing
Yes.
who was at that writing conference.
Yes. So my first pick is Robert Hass's Sun Underwood, which is, I think it's not his first book. It came out in 1996, but this was the first book of his at that poetry conference that I went to when I was 16. He wrote, he inscribed it for our time at Squaw Valley in your poem. Thanks, Bob Hass.
Oh, what a great inscription.
I know.
Also, this is weathered.
I've moved all over the country. I have never lived anywhere without this book. It has been everywhere with me. And one of the things I love about this book is it continues. I continue to find new meaning in it each time I visit it as an older person. So like there were poems that felt really, really moving to me as a young person. And an example I'll give you is a pretty famous poem of his called Dragonflies Mating, which is this absolutely beautiful poem where he's watching kind of dragonflies mating over this pond, and then he's thinking about kind of why human relationships feel so torturous in sort of contrast to the natural world. And, you know, of course, as like a 16-year-old and then 20-year-old, I really related to that. And it's incredibly beautiful. Can I just read a couple lines?
Oh, you can read the whole thing if you want.
Okay, well, maybe I'll just read the end. So it's a poem in 6 parts, and I'll just read this one little section of it. I'll read part of part 6, which is the last section. This morning in the early sun, steam rising from the pond, the color of smoky topaz, a pair of delicate, copper-red, needle-fine insects are mating in the unopened crown of a Shasta daisy just outside your door. The green flower heads look like wombs or the upright, supplicant bulbs of a vegetal pre-erection. The insect lovers seem to be transferring the cosmos into each other by attaching at the tail, holding utterly still and quivering intently. I think, on what evidence, that they're different from us. They mate and are done with mating. They don't carry all this half-mated longing up out of childhood and then go looking for it everywhere. And so I think they can't wound each other the way we do. They don't go through life dizzy or groggy with their hunger, kill with it, smear it on everything, though perhaps it's also true that nothing happens to them quite like what happens to us when the blue-backed swallow dips swiftly toward the green pond, and the pond's green and blue reflected swallow marries it a moment in the reflected sky, and the heart goes out to the end of the rope it's been throwing into abyss after abyss, and a singing shimmers from every color the morning has risen into. I just got goosebumps.
Good fucking guy. I know, I'm just like that. Oh my, it's just like it keeps building.
Yes.
Like, how is this getting better?
Oh my God. Like, I've probably read this poem like 1,000 times, and every time I'm just like, holy.
I mean, literally, I'm like,
yeah.
all over my body, goosebumps.
So like one of these kind of wild moments of crossover is that when I was in college, I was in a play that a grad student was putting together, and the script was entirely made of Robert Hass's poetry. And so so I got to perform part of Dragonflies Mating as a script. So like we were talking before about some books that are in your body. So there's a bunch of this book that's like literally memorized inside me. It's like coded into my DNA.
Like this is pure delight to learn this, you know, like all of these webs and how like one book, not only you carry physically, but like what are the odds?
I know.
That you end up performing that.
I know. It was wild. Yeah.
And like, I don't even know how you would be able to get through it, you know?
Oh, man.
Like I think I would be overwhelmed performing the words.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah. It was very easy to evoke emotion because I mean, the language just carried so much. Can I just read one other tiny thing?
Yes, please.
So I was talking about how this book continues to open up in new ways to me as I've gotten older. And so now I'm 42 now, and there's this really super short poem in here called 40-something, which I just kind of flipped to accidentally again the other day and had a real cackle about. So I'm going to read it to you. It's called 40-something. She says to him, musing, "If you ever leave me and marry a younger woman and have another baby, I'll put a knife in your heart." They're in bed, so she climbs onto his chest and looks directly down into his eyes. "Do you understand? Your heart."
Wow.
You know, when I was 20, that didn't make much sense to me. But like, there's something that's so moving about revisiting work at different moments in your life.
Oh, totally. And I think with poetry, in some ways, the fragmentation of poems lends itself better to that experience than any other form of writing, you know, because with a novel, it's like you'd have to reread the whole thing,
right?
Potentially to experience it anew. And so I love doing that too with plenty of writers, and just see what else sticks out, you know. Like the older I get, the more I feel like I'm going to. I just had a friend read *The Professor's House* by Willa Cather for the first time, and him being in his 60s, like a retired art teacher, there's almost an unsettling connection with this guy who's just like, I'm so old I wouldn't even want to do it again. Wow. You know?
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
But he's kind of looking back at his life like, what did it all become? You know, in his upper Midwestern drab of a town, like hates his son-in-law, is like disappointed in his daughter for being with him, and just like how, like kind of just a strained relationship with his wife, sleeping in a totally different house. That's like, but I'm like, I mean, I'm young and already feel that. I can't even imagine. But I think of someone like Jim who hadn't read it back when he was 25. Like, what would that have experience been like? But with poems, it's like, yeah, you can just open to a page. And it's like, there it is. There's one for 40-something.
Totally. You find this little nugget and it just.
But this is beautiful too, just, I think, even more because of that experience with him. To have that personal connection and to revisit it through time gives it another layer. Because, like, who would you be without him and all those other teachers? Yeah. So that's just, I'm really glad this all connected and you shared that, because I didn't know this was going to be part of the stack. Yeah. So is there anything else you want to say about Robert before we move to the next one? I mean, just that so many of his books are really beautiful, but he also is just one of those really generous presences. Like, he served as the poet laureate for a long time, but he's just had a lot of programs that he's run in the country, and he has really beautiful criticism. So anyone listening, if you haven't kind of done a deep dive on him, I think he's like just a real national treasure. Shouts out Bob. Yeah, shout out Bob. It. Oh, great start. What about number 2? Okay. Number 2 is a novel, I think we call it a novel, by Michael Ondaatje called Coming Through Slaughter. Do you know this book? I do. Okay. So Michael Ondaatje is kind of probably best known for The English Patient, his novel. He's also a poet. And this is a book, Coming Through Slaughter, that sort of imagines the life of Buddy Bolden, who was a jazz singer in the 30s. And we know at the turn of the century in New Orleans, who at 30 years old, I think, maybe even younger, we know almost nothing about him except for that what's written about him is he was like maybe the greatest musician to have ever lived. So based on these like really tiny facts, Ondaatje creates this sort of fictionalized life for Buddy Bolden. And then he like famously kind of goes completely crazy and disappears really quickly. This book was assigned to me when I started my MFA program in this class taught by the poet Joel Brower, and it was called The Uses of Histories. And so each book somehow was incorporating something real about history and then kind of imaginatively using it. And what blew my mind about this book is that the language is so poetic and strange. And the whole book tells this narrative of this sort of invented story of Buddy Bolden. And there are so many gaps. There's just so much we don't know about the story that he leaves kind of blank in here. Yeah. And I really, really loved that about it. Oh my gosh, what a great book to get assigned. It's reminding me of, Elizabeth Crook, also Books on the Bed participant from a couple seasons ago. She wrote a novel called Raven's Bride. And this was about Sam Houston's wife, who had records of her, like, burned, destroyed. And she, like, went with him to Texas, or was on the way from Tennessee, where they met, and then, like, didn't end up going with him. We just know so little about this woman's life, but Elizabeth says, okay, well, let's imagine. Cool. Based on the little we know, and, like, obviously taking some creative liberties. But I find that I don't think I'd ever do it. Yeah. That would be a really hard task. Yeah. And yet there's so much richness that comes from the not knowing. Yeah. The gaps. Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible. It's incredible. And I think I think one of the things that this book just shows is like how, like, I think the thing that is amazing about writing is that it all comes from some point of obsession. There's like some piece of sand that gets stuck in your brain and it just gets tumbled over and you hope it makes a pearl. It doesn't always make a pearl, but it gets stuck. And so like, I just love imagining that Ondaatje learned this tiny piece of history, kind of started to understand how much we didn't know, and then stepped into the sort of fictional space of inventing everything else around it. Do you think reading a book like this and discussing it in a program helped you just own those obsessions that you've had? Totally. Tremendously. Because we've talked about this. You had quite a few. Had some, yeah. But like sometimes it can feel like, oh man, this is weird. Yes. Or maybe I should not have this obsession, or I shouldn't act on it. Yeah. But it's like, why not?
Yeah.
You know?
100%. I mean, this was the class where I finally, like, we've talked, I think, a little bit before about my obsession with Jacques Cousteau. And this was the class where I finally, like, started writing a ton about Jacques Cousteau.
Did the essay you have online about, oh my God, oh, I wish I would have printed it out. There was an essay that had, like, all these, like, fragmented sections. That was about Jacques Cousteau. Oh my gosh.
The one in Brevity, with, like, where I'm holding my boyfriend's baby. Yeah. Yeah. I bet you that came out of this class, actually. That was the first piece I ever published in my life. And I know that we had a visiting writer at Alabama that was, like, prompting that. But it's permission. You know, it's, like, all about permission to be like, hey, this thing that is in your brain that you think is too weird is exactly the thing you should be writing about. You know, it's exactly that. And this book a little bit feels to me like one of those keys that unlocks a door that I'm also not even exactly sure why. There was, like, something specifically about the language that Ondaatje uses paired with kind of the holes that he still allows in the narrative that just felt like I had never read a book like it before. And it was like, not only is there the permission to kind of move into obsession, but also permission to sort of make a novel be whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
You know?
Sometimes it feels like reading certain novels, I wish they wouldn't try to explain so much.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But that probably comes from not wanting anything to be left out or misinterpreted but that is such a damaging way to move through the world.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
like living in Minnesota taught me just how close I can get to violence from hearing people qualify every fucking sentence they're about to say to make it more gentle or approachable and like how little you can get done. Look, if someone's going to think you're a jerk for just, like, saying something without qualifying with a bunch of sort of, kind of, maybe, right? I mean, that's not how the world should work, and nor should it be with books.
Yeah.
I remember, have you ever met Julian Davis, the painter and novelist
in town?
from England?
Yes, I have. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he was on my first podcast, and he said it best. The joy of reading someone like Willa Cather, Eudora Welty, is that they didn't feel the pressure to explain everything to the reader.
Yeah.
And I do feel like publishing has rewarded that.
Yes.
In ways that I think makes books worse.
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't explain any. Like, you don't want to leave everything up to interpretation, but, like, the beauty and power of this is what I'm going to write. You know, I don't need to fill in every blank. It's impossible for me to do that.
Yeah.
Because someone's coming to this book with a whole world of experience that I don't even know. So, even reading The Red Grove, me as a 34-year-old man from the Midwest, I have a completely different experience with that.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Than women in general.
Right.
But let alone women who have had particular traumas.
Right.
Or grew up in certain communities.
Totally. Yeah.
Point is, just follow it. And it's cool that you had a model for that.
This was my first year in my MFA program at Alabama. So I was I was still a poet. I still considered myself a poet, but was really had always been drawn to narrative. And so it's where I started to learn that I am actually a prose writer who just loves lyric language. That's my home is more in that territory.
I've really enjoyed meeting so many writers that started as poets in the MFA program and ended up as novelists. Henry Wise wrote a thriller mystery that won the Edgar Award for Best First Novel. He was a poetry student at the University of Mississippi.
Amazing.
You know, so it's just you never know where things are going to take you, but it makes sense then why you attached to this book, you know, and carried it. So,
speaking of, I want to introduce my next book, which is, I think, very connected, actually. Speaking of authors who feel total permission to leave a lot out and leave a lot off the page, the next book that I have in my stack here is Toni Morrison's Jazz.
Heck yeah.
And this is not one of her most known books. It's like, I think, a little bit off the radar. And it is, I've loved, she is the queen of American letters, obviously. And so I almost didn't want to put her in the stack because, like, we all know, read Toni Morrison. But there's something about this book. This was another one of those books that I had read a number of her other novels before and, had loved them. But then I read this book and was just like, holy shit.
Yeah, only reaction.
Oh my God. Yeah. And, one of the things that I think she does so amazingly well is she does not hold your hand through what story she's telling. She lets so much language pull you forward. I mean, which is not to say there aren't incredibly compelling stories. Like all of her books have these, wild, amazing stories, but she lets the language has this really important role, and she trusts that the reader is going to do the work to participate in the story making with her. And that is maybe like a little bit of what we're talking about the expectation of, leaving things out. And so like, I just, in preparation for this, I was just like rereading the first couple of pages, and I was like, how does this book start? And so I'm just going to read the first couple sentences. I know that woman. She used to live with a flock of birds on Lenox Avenue. Know her husband too. He fell for an 18-year-old girl with one of those deep-down, spooky loves that made him so sad and happy he shot her just to keep the feeling going. When the woman, her name is Violet, went to the funeral to see the girl and to cut her dead face, they threw her to the floor and out of the church. She ran then through all that snow, and when she got back to her apartment, she took the birds from their cages and set them out the windows to freeze or fly, including the parrot that said, "I love you." What a wild first paragraph. Oh my God.
I mean, again, it's like, it's not until you read sentences like that you realize the possibilities of books,
Yeah.
Like if you haven't read Morrison before and you finally get to it, it's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
How can a person do this? And how do they have a whole book of this?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's one of those beginnings you'll never forget.
Right. Where it's like, it's so condensed. In some ways we have like the plot of the entire novel, the plot of a whole, you could, even more than, it's like a huge plot that we have laid out in those first few sentences. And yet the way that she's also inserting all of these like very, very specific moments in here. So like the fact that she used to live with a flock of birds, and then, the parrot who says, "I love you." So she does this thing, I think, incredibly well, which is she articulates universal truths, while also always grounding us so specifically in these like beautiful characters, beautiful details. And the way that she operates on both of those levels is just remarkable.
Hey, she's master. I mean, it's just, gosh, it's incredible. And it's funny that you mention this being a lesser known book. I think Tony's been on 4 or 5 episodes now. Never the same book.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Like you would think, same thing with Lucille Clifton. Never the same Lucille book.
Wow.
And so I've started noticing that maybe it's because she's one of those writers where you love everything, but you connect more with one story, or novel than another. Or maybe it's that people are getting like, well, I remember Ramika Bingham-Risher said she wanted to give me home because it was small. And if I'm traveling, it's like, but that's why I love this exercise.
Yeah.
Because if I said best Toni Morrison book, maybe there would be more overlap.
Right.
But that everybody's so, like, that's why these stacks are so unique. And I love it.
Yeah.
So when I saw this in the stack, I was like, here's another one.
Yeah.
That people need to read. You should read every Toni Morrison book. But I find that fascinating how books are shared. And when they don't overlap, like, what's the reason for that?
And, part of my thinking is sort of just what you're saying. I'm like, well, most people who are readers, who consider themselves readers, have probably read some of her more well-known books. And so, if I could sort of, insert one of these other books into their world, like, it's just...
And I love that.
It's just a gift. Yeah.
And I love that you have the liberty to do that.
Yeah. Cool.
So what do you got for number 4?
Okay. Number 4, we're going to shift gears totally.
Oh, wow.
To sort of a personal nature writing book by Cy Montgomery called The Soul of an Octopus, a surprising exploration into the wonder of consciousness.
I still haven't read this.
You haven't read this book?
I've heard it's great.
Oh my God. This book just absolutely floored me. And I think Cy Montgomery is just generally a masterful nature writer. But what she does in this book, so it's broken into maybe like 8 chapters, and she gets to know, 4 or 5 octopi, extremely well. And the book is not just like the book is about her relationships with these octopi. So it's not just like incredible facts about the octopi, which are, they're the most remarkable creatures, but it's like, what is it like to develop an intimate relationship with this creature? And what is it that you learn about them, and what what are we kind of assuming that they're learning about us, and how does that intimacy change? And it just like, I think on two levels. One, it was one of those books that opened me to the world that we're living in a really different way. But then it also, as a writer, kind of on a writing level, made me think about like what an absolute marvel it is to have the opportunity to write and communicate this kind of experience with the natural world in a way that changes other people's relationships with the natural world, with what they're doing, with how they're spending their resources, anything like that. And so the writing is remarkable. What we learn about octopi is remarkable. Just the whole thing. Like it's one of those books where I have all these visceral memories of like where I was sitting when I'm coming to passages and just being like, what? This is wild.
Well, and this is one of those books that so Anne Pancake and I talked about this. One of the most necessary jobs of a writer right now, especially nature writers, is to make works that do change our relation. Because we're not going to overcome damage to our earth arguing online or,
right.
Appealing to BP oil or anything,
Right.
So, but the more books that show people a different way.
Yeah.
And one of the books she chose was about a French guy literally living in the woods for years, only occasionally like sneaking back to his parents' house and then going back in the woods, but living with deer.
Oh, interesting.
And how they eventually would get comfortable enough to like have births with this guy just standing there.
Whoa.
How you can become part of the rhythms of nature when you completely detach yourself, because animals can feel you. So like what happens though when you take yourself out of this world and become more a part of theirs, then you're less noticeable as like an outsider. And I think that's just a special thing that very few people can accomplish.
Yeah.
But even if a book like this moves the needle a little bit for people,
okay.
And talk about an obsession or like just an interesting thing to write about.
Yeah.
I'm glad that was a nice interruption in the genre and content. I am curious, is there a paragraph you could read that kind of highlights why you love this book and the language?
Yeah. There was just like a little, this comes really early on, just in the first chapter. And it's not even, this is kind of before she actually has developed any of her relationships. So it's her just kind of thinking about them from the outside. But I just liked this little part. More than 500 million years ago, the lineage that would lead to octopuses and the one leading to humans separated. Was it possible, I wondered, to reach another mind on the other side of that divide? Octopuses represent the great mystery of the other. They seem completely alien, and yet their world, the ocean, comprises far more of the Earth, 70% of its surface area, more than 90% of its habitable space, than does land. Most animals on this planet live in the ocean, and most of them are invertebrates. I wanted to meet the octopus. I wanted to touch an alternate reality. I wanted to explore a kind of consciousness, if such a thing exists. What is it like to be an octopus? Is it anything like being a human? And is it even possible to know? So I think she really beautifully kind of asks these big philosophical questions, gives us this research, and then brings us into the personal beautifully.
Man, this is reminding me of Kevin Brockmeyer. Mm-hmm. His episode came out yesterday. And when we were together in Little Rock talking about his books, interview he did, or conversation with Karen Russell came up. And in that, I had pulled out this bit that he didn't really expound upon all that much in their conversation, but like, are we telling the wrong stories? And I haven't really seen authors talk about that. But the angle that he took it from is like, is human consciousness even the most interesting thing? And how much of our novels are just completely centered. I mean, some are just the internal life of a human.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so this kind of gets at that other world that he's really interested in writing about now. Mm-hmm. Like his latest book was 100 short, like 1 to 2 page ghost stories.
Cool.
And so I think his aims of writing have become different now that he's wondering, are there other stories we can tell?
Yeah.
And this kind of gets to that question.
I've been thinking about this a lot actually, because the book I'm writing right now, the first draft I wrote in first person, and I was like, this is not correct. And so I'm rewriting the book right now, and I'm getting close to the end with this omniscient point of view where we're moving, the majority of the book is close third on humans, but we move into all kinds of other consciousnesses.
Yeah.
There's like we're in the minds of beavers and owls and aspen trees. We're just moving all over time and space, and we're in airplanes and we're underwater, and that has felt so fun and freeing. And also actually in this moment, this conversation that these two people are having inside is so much less relevant than what the owl that's sitting on the branch outside is seeing. And the way that they're going to make a choice right now is actually going to sort of bring everything forward and complicate things. And so it's been awesome.
Oh my God. I'm excited now, because one of my favorite novels the last few years I thought was going to be bad. And it was Jim Minnick's Fire Is Your Water. Because I was not sold on each chapter alternating between the human experience and a bird. I was like, that's an interesting move. I don't know how someone could do it well. And then I read it, and you get the same experience of what's happening with this family and these relationships, and then the same thing with the bird, and then see how the bird interjects itself and changes the dynamics of everything.
I love that.
So now you said, I'm like, oh man, I should have got you that.
Well, I will find that book. Yeah.
Now I'm really excited to.
Cool.
I'm glad you made that change, which is kind of a big deal.
It's a huge rewrite. Yeah.
Did you think about not doing it because it would be too much?
Sure did. Would have loved for that to feel like a legit option, but I think you come upon these moments when you're writing where you're like, oh, I see the path, and it is way harder than I thought. Yeah. But it's the only way. It's the only path. Yeah. Big project.
Getting close to the end.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, that was a great number 4. What about number 5?
Okay, number 5 is All My Puny Sorrows by Miriam Toews. Have you ever read her? Oh my God. So she is a Canadian writer. She grew up in a Mennonite community, and she's maybe the funniest writer I've ever encountered. And she writes about the most depressing possible things. And I hadn't heard of her. I think the first thing that I encountered of hers was Women Talking, which got made into a movie in the last year or two. And I think that book is really interesting. But All My Puny Sorrows is my favorite of hers by far, although I like a lot of her other books too. And I'm just going to read the first paragraph just to give you a little vibe. Our house was taken away on the back of a truck one afternoon late in the summer of 1979. My parents and my older sister and I stood in the middle of the street and watched it disappear, a low-slung bungalow made of wood and brick and plaster slowly making its way down First Street, past the A&W and the deluxe bowling lanes, and out onto the number 12 highway, where we eventually lost sight of it. I can still see it, said my sister Elfrida repeatedly, until finally she couldn't. I can still see it. I can still see it. I can still... Okay, nope, it's gone, she said. So this book is written... It kind of moves all over time, from the time that these two sisters are girls sort of until they're adults. And the narrator is just kind of like this, it's like she hasn't really been able to get her life together. She has a kid, maybe even 2, maybe with a couple different people. She is having a hard time keeping a job, but she's this really interesting, smart person. And her sister is a world famous concert pianist, this incredible musician who has been extremely suicidal her whole life. And she's sort of constantly feeling like she can't be in the world anymore. And so the book, in many ways, is actually about suicide and about her sister sort of talking about why she wants to be able to choose to not be here anymore, and our narrator trying to just honestly think through why we ask people to stay and who we ask them to stay for, and whether it's ever okay to not ask that of someone.
Talk about a taboo subject.
Oh my God. And it's also truly the funniest book I've ever read. And the fact that she can do those things simultaneously is mind-blowing to me. It's totally astonishing.
Oh, you sold me. I mean, not having had suicide in my immediate family, but there were a few different works of art. One particular album by a rapper from Kentucky who moved to Seattle, where it's the most open anyone's been about what happens when your father kills himself, and then his brother-in-law jumped off a building years later.
Oh my God.
So father, brother-in-law, a few years apart, completely horrific experiences. But it was the first time I'd seen, I'd heard somebody write about suicide in that open of a way.
Yeah.
And then like also reading his interviews, just how open he talks about it, because he's like, no one talks about this at all without beating around the bush.
Yeah.
And so I think we need as much art as possible that communicates that experience. But I think that's an interesting question of, who are we keeping them here for?
Yeah. And you know that she, I don't think Miriam Toews would say that she writes autobiographical novels. I don't think she would like use that language, but all of them are set very much like within families that come from really closed religious backgrounds. And that's always sort of part of this trying to understand oneself kind of, and not even being very far outside of it. I think, I can't remember if in this book, if they're even technically outside of it or not, but really just trying to think through what that experience gives you and takes away from you. And then just being very honest about, these kinds of relationships and all the while just doing it. Like, I think to be really funny in some ways takes this vulnerability that in some ways, like the subject matter of the book perfectly aligns for, and yet also you're like, how could you possibly write a funny book about suicide? And I don't know.
Those are the best people that write about. I mean, truly. Like, I feel like a lot of, doesn't mean there aren't serious works about suicide that are really good too.
Yeah.
I am often looking for books related to suicide, and especially in different contexts, because suicide, depending on what religion you grow up in, can mean a whole bunch of different things. And, Mennonite in particular, that was the most formative high school experience I had, going to a Catholic high school, but spending a week on a Mennonite farm in rural Kentucky.
Whoa.
And it was the first time I realized I'm 100% leaving Dayton, Ohio, and the Catholic Church never coming back.
Wow.
So, like, being in that community and seeing the way they live day to day for even a short period of time was eye-opening. However, everybody sees the afterlife differently.
Yeah.
And what it means, like, my ex's grandmother couldn't be buried at or have a Catholic church service or be buried in their cemetery because she committed suicide. In order to have that happen, they had to lie about her cancer.
Wow. That's so intense.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. I mean, you risk alienation, you risk it can have profound consequences. And yet also like, there is a kind of suffering that we often don't acknowledge, a level of suffering that people get to sometimes when they're making that choice. And I don't think the answer is just like, well, just hold your, take a bunch of pills and get through it. Like, I'm not saying that I think the answer is suicide, but I just think that there's a lot more nuance there.
Yeah, I don't think any of us know the answer.
Right. Yeah. But read Miriam Toews and she'll at least give you I
am looking for something funny too.
Yeah.
I've read some deeply serious books that take themselves too seriously.
Got it. Yep.
So this sounds like a welcome interruption of that kind of feeling.
Cool.
So what about number 6?
Okay, last book for now is We the Animals by Justin Torres. Have you encountered this book?
I don't know that I've ever heard anybody talk about it.
Oh,
which
amazing.
Is like even another level.
Oh, I love this.
Yeah, okay.
So this is a novel, although I feel like it's one of those books that's like a novel, but also maybe sort of a collection of stories and also maybe a memoir. It feels like all of those things.
Yeah.
And the basic premise is there are these 3 young brothers, and it kind of starts out with them when they're pretty young, and it kind of goes maybe through around adolescence. And a lot of the book is written in this plural, we, so it's like all of the brothers together. And then kind of as the book goes on, they differentiate more, and you kind of understand there's actually sort of a singular narrator. And as he gets more alienated from his brothers, like their experience as a unit kind of disintegrates. And it's largely because the narrator, I don't think this is spoiling anything, but he's queer, and it's this sort of machismo Latin family, and the dad is kind of in and out a little bit. The mom is working really hard and is like often sort of works these night shifts and doesn't get enough sleep, and so she's like very confused. And so there's this, it's like both the most tender portrait of sibling love that I've ever read before, just gorgeous.
Yeah.
And also this really amazing story of like sort of separating from people who you feel like you're kind of attached to. There was, came out in 2011. There is a really beautiful indie movie made.
I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew it.
Yeah,
I watched it.
Oh, yes. Yep.
I was like, why is this title familiar? But maybe I'm just mixing it up.
Yep.
Because ain't nobody seen that movie, it feels like.
No.
But holy shit, it was
gorgeous.
so powerful.
Yeah.
So powerful. I remember that was one that I watched really late at night. And I think I was in Minnesota. And it was like, that movie ends and you're like, what do I do with myself after that?
Yeah.
I can't just go to bed.
No.
Or like do something,
Yeah, it's profound.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, totally.
I'm so glad that connection was made now and that I know it's a book.
Yeah.
I wish I would have known that sooner.
Yeah, well,
incredible
now
film.
you do. Yeah, incredible film. I guess I met him first. I think we were like at the same conference. And then I learned when I first sold my book, this book had come out not long before, and it was my editor who acquired my book put this book out, and this was the first book I read that I think that I knew directly was hers, and I was just like, I actually like couldn't communicate with her for weeks because I was so overwhelmed and intimidated by how good this book was.
That's crazy.
I'm going to read just the first paragraph, and they're also super short chapters, so they're like, just a couple of pages. Because the first chapter is called "We Wanted More." We wanted more. We knocked the butt ends of our forks against the table, tapped our spoons against our empty bowls. We were hungry. We wanted more volume, more riots. We turned up the knob on the TV until our ears ached with the shouts of angry men. We wanted more music on the radio. We wanted beats. We wanted rock. We wanted muscles on our skinny arms. We had bird bones, hollow and light, and we wanted more density, more weight. We were 6 snatching hands, 6 stomping feet. We were brothers, boys, 3 little kings locked in a feud for more.
Woof.
So it's just, and it just like this pace, this language, this togetherness, it's just, it like just kind of builds and builds, and it, it's really a stunning book.
Oh man. Yeah. And what a connection with your own writing career to then see like, oh, here's yet another like step in the evolution of my writer journey. It's like, okay, I'm going to work with this person and they did this.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to put my head under a pillow and never come out again. I'm too scared, but yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is an incredible 6.
Cool.
I can't say I saw any of these coming. And I'm usually pretty good about like, at least an author, not even their book, of being like, okay, this is going to be included.
What'd you think for me?
Well, I thought it was going to be...
Diva Karuni.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I thought maybe one of your writer friends.
What? Oh, yes.
I thought maybe Annie or Julia or someone that you know personally, just because, you would want to share their books. But then again, I was like, this project doesn't lend itself to that very often. There's people that writers know that they share. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I thought maybe those folks. And I see another Copper Canyon book.
This one?
C.D. Wright.
Oh, God, I'm obsessed with her.
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
Okay, Jessie Van Eerden told me about this book. She, that's on her 6, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, really?
Or was it on her 2nd stack? See, sometimes I can't remember.
Sure. Yeah.
But she definitely...
Arkansas writer. Yeah.
She put me on to C.D. Wright, and I immediately got this book, and we have it at City Lights now because of that. Nice. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, she's bananas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's like the coolest poet.
Yeah. I'm like, why can't I be like that? She's so good. This was incredible.
Cool.
I thank you for sharing these. None of them have been shared.
Great. So that's so fun.
Yet another 6 that people can dive into. And I just love that like hardly any of these are on top 100s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any of the bullshit that gets just force-fed to us. Not that there aren't good popular books.
Yeah.
I try to make that clear. I've read plenty of bestsellers or people that are considered more like, I guess, Drake of writing, or something. But there's just something really, I think, powerful about seeing when you just start left to this guy's coming.
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to choose?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to acknowledge the other ones that you have.
Sure. Maybe I'll just say them really quickly.
Just so that we...
Just, this is like almost a random secondary stack because I have other stacks upstairs. So I just I don't want to leave those babies behind. But Melanie Ray Tone, Thon, she was a mentor of mine in my PhD program. She's a prose writer and a poet. And all of her books are just absolutely haunting and lyric and incredible. And this one in my hand is called The Seventh Man, and it's it's also a collective we of the people whose job it is to carry someone in prison to their execution. So it's very moving.
Wow.
Next book is Susan Sontag's Illness as Metaphor and AIDS and Its Metaphors. And Sontag is just like just an absolutely brilliant critic. But the way reading Illness as Metaphor totally opened up my eyes to the way, like my mom had a long-term illness. I've had some long-term illnesses. And so thinking about just how we write about illness, how we think about it, what kinds of like moral weight we ascribe to it, it's really remarkable. C.D. Wright's Deep Step Come Shining, which we were just talking about. She is like the wackiest brained just poet. I don't even know. Just weirdo, it's like a carnival ride inside her brain. And then Jacques Cousteau. I have like a lifelong obsession with Jacques Cousteau, and I really could have chosen any of his books, but I grabbed this one called The Living Sea, largely because in the last chapter of it, he details Conshelf 1, which was his project to build an underwater apartment for these two guys to live in for a while. And I just think it's like the most amazing moment. And then this book that completely floored me called No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood, which was maybe a bestseller. It won the 2021 Booker and got a lot of attention. She's a poet. The thing about this book that blew my mind was that I actually started it like 5 times and hated it because the beginning of it, it's like all written in these little sort of chunks, and it feels like you're just reading someone's like quippy Twitter feed in the beginning, and it's really sort of focused on the beginning is focused on like this sort of like online celebrity person who's just kind of like her job is making snarky remarks on the internet. But the whole point of the book is it's like a life in 2 parts. So then something happens and the second part of the book is about something else entirely, where then that character has to make sense of what it means to kind of only live by making quippy remarks on the internet while this devastating thing is happening in her life. I've maybe never cried more in a book than the second half of this book.
That feels like a really important book.
It's really important.
I can't believe I've never heard anybody.
Oh my God,
talk
really?
about that book.
Oh,
yeah.
It was in my top 6 and then it got booted at the last second, but it should be.
I'm glad we mentioned it.
Yeah, it's No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood. She has a new book that I think is coming out in the next couple of months.
Good to know.
Keep an eye out for, but yeah.
Yeah, there's so many I want to read here. This is why I, on the side of like, I hate you all. Like, is how you hate me for making you choose. I hate you all for presenting such good books.
Your to-read list is long. Yeah.
And I try so hard to get to everything.
There's no way.
You know, and I also try to read everybody's book that comes to City Lights.
Wow.
So like between the podcast and that, there's not much room. Fortunately, with the podcast, I love all of these books. So, you know, I never read. Like if I don't finish a book, I'm not going to interview that person. You know, like if I didn't like it. So,
right.
In many ways, it also gives me just a guided list all the time. Yeah. But then there's some that just like, I want to read now.
Yeah.
I'm like, but can I? And I'm not a fast reader. I wish I was. I am slow as hell. Yeah. And it's so frustrating. Yeah. My brain just can't process books and read that fast like it used to. Or maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean,
I can enjoy them
maybe
more.
They seep in a way they wouldn't otherwise. Yeah.
So the last thing, if we can, I was hoping you would pick maybe the passage that feels in the Red Grove that feels most like your epiphany, becoming a mother, of this idea of like, it complicated the relationship of how you were going to write the mother-daughter relationship because of your own experience of just like, they might make mistakes, but they're really trying. And so I didn't know if there was any particular passage that stands out because I didn't want to choose that for you.
Yeah. I can think of something.
Okay.
Let me grab my copy that has the dog-eared.
Okay, cool.
It actually was harder to come up with a single passage, but I'm going to read just this little section that comes on page 71. And this is like Gloria is the mother here, and she's making some kind of big choices about what to do with her daughter. What is a mother? She asked herself this question not infrequently, trying to articulate what she was supposed to be doing. What is a mother if not a protector? If not a person who must provide the information and guidance to help a child make the best choices? There were a lot of things Gloria had not done as a mother. Hell, she was a human, her own human first and foremost. She would not sacrifice all of herself. Why should she? The sacrificial mother was a bullshit narrative. But she could do this one thing. When Luce was 1 or 2 years old, Gloria had brought her a plastic clown mask. Here, she'd said, handing it to the baby, who still looked a little drunk in her new wobbling walk. Luce looked at her mother, not smiling, not reaching out to take it. Gloria tried again, here, shaking it closer to Luce's hand, making it easy, but Luce stared, maybe didn't even blink. It's silly, don't you see, honey? It's so funny, she said, booping the nose. She said, hi, Luce, in this high-pitched drawl, a clown voice. It was funny, but Luce didn't budge, didn't crack a smile. Luce held in her hand a wooden mixing spoon, which Jem told Gloria she brought everywhere. This child so small and already so stubborn, so skeptical, so sure of what she liked and what she didn't. But this is a clown, Gloria had tried once more, sticking out her tongue. Nothing. Luce was not a baby who would pander. She did not pretend to be moved by something that didn't move her. Not as a baby, not as a child, not now as a young woman. Gloria had brought the wrong toy. The only way to reach Luce was on Luce's own terms. So I guess, I'm just thinking about like that recognition of the total individuality. I mean, this is like connects back to what we're talking about, that moment of my mom being like,
that's crazy. I didn't know you'd choose that, but it's literally directly related.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't choose to go in there, but I can see this individual who is me and is not me at all, that I can open this door for them.